G'day guys, Jaden here from Abraham's Fortune Wellness Center, sharing a little bit about where I'm at today. We are starting a new series here at the center. It's to do with one of the courses that we're running here. It's all about mindfulness, essentially. It's one of my personal favorites. I like to learn more about mindfulness. I think it's a very, very important thing, one of, if not the most important thing. We'll stick with one of, in my personal life. And so very blessed and fortunate to be able to be here and talk to you guys about it. I scratched my head in terms of how to talk to this topic, right? Because it's a very, very dense and rich topic, and depending on who you ask is what mindfulness will mean. And so what I thought I'd do is I'd touch on a couple of the definitions that I've heard personally, ones that I find some sort of benefit in sharing. And as the videos progress, we'll break those down a little bit further and go into the details as to why they are beneficial, how they're practical, what you can do in your own life, exercises, etc. So the definitions that I want to touch to, what is mindfulness in of itself? Well, it's being mindful, right? Well, what is being mindful? Okay, it's being aware. If I'm being mindful of the environment I'm in, I'm being aware of the environment I'm in, and I'm also seeing, okay, how do I interact with this thing? Being mindful of my own interaction with the environment too, right? So mindfulness in general is just keeping something full in the mind, right? Okay, I'm thinking about this thing, I'm considering it, I'm approaching it, I'm trying to dissect it, perceive it in some sort of way. I am being mindful of it. Now, there's two different ways that I've heard about mindfulness from there, essentially, in a more spiritual lens. The first one is a little bit more, what I'd say, rudimentary. It's a little bit more basic, in my personal opinion. You guys meditate how you want to meditate, see mindfulness as you already do. But again, we're here to engage and learn. And so mindfulness, for me, I've heard it talked about in that way of sort of, okay, you sit there, meditate, close your eyes, you remove all your thoughts, and you're becoming mindful as you remove thoughts from your mind. Now, this is a form of cultivating awareness, 100%, which is cultivating mindfulness then, right? Because if you allow your brain to go quiet enough, sit there in meditation, keep bringing it away from your thoughts and back to that peace, that sort of just being, and the watching wanderer, or the waiting observer, whatever the fuck you want to call it. If you bring your mindfulness back to just being present, it's going to help create pathways in your neural network that are going to allow you to be more peaceful in times in your life, whether it be going to work or sitting there meditating. The more you do something, the more it's going to build up, and the more it's going to happen, right? That's the law of something, I'm sure they call it, but I know it to be truth. And speaking of truth, this is one way that we can be mindful. Sit there, close your eyes, become mindful. We'll dive into that a little bit later in topics. The other way I've learned about is in yoga, which talks about mindfulness meditation for sure and being mindful, but it asks a deeper question, which is not just, okay, how do I achieve some form of mindfulness, as in the mindfulness meditation, it's a form of mindfulness. How do I achieve that and work with that? Rather than thinking practically, it thinks more spiritually to say, okay, what does mindfulness look like spiritually? Not just practically, not just being mindful, basic level. What is being mindful on a spiritual level, to which I understand the case to be thinking about the Lord all the time, doing his work, connecting to him, not just being mindful of our own mind, but being mindful by connecting to him, reading scripture, connecting to others about him and seeing, well, what does he want for me? Asking those deeper questions and trying to be mindful of what he wants in our lives. That's a form of mindfulness that I've only come to quite recently. But compared to the other two, it does seem, it feels like it's more confronting. It's more like daunting. Like, how do I define mindfulness in such a complex and almost arbitrary way, right? Because defining an esoteric connection is going to come different to everyone. Am I going crazy? All these questions that we ask ourselves too. But nonetheless, it still points to me, compared to these other two, as maybe not less beneficial, because they're all going to have their benefits in their own ways to different people, but it strikes me as the richest way that I've found to define mindfulness. And on that note, we've already been going for about 5 minutes here, team, so we're going to wrap it there. Told you guys I could chat to mindfulness for a very long time. Very blessed to be here. Would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Maybe you guys define mindfulness differently. Maybe you have your own activities that you do to try to cultivate mindfulness in your own soul. Love to hear about it. Until the next time, see you then.